What's up, everybody? So here we have Connor Watson, our lead hitting trainer in Arizona. We have Elijah Boyer, our senior hitting trainer in Arizona. I'm Tanner Stokey, director of hitting here at Driveline. Today we're going to get a little into fall training with college and high school seasons getting rolling. All three of us in here have some level of college coaching experience. I can let them speak on it here for a second. But yeah, Boyer specifically, he interned with us last summer, went out and coached at Lansing Community College up in Michigan, implemented a bunch of the stuff he learned during his time here last summer. And then he's back up here now full time, going to be crushing things with Waddy during the pro offseason in Arizona. So yeah, let you guys get a little into your college coaching backgrounds to start. Take it away.
All right, well, I'll go first. Yeah, so the college coaching background started in, I won't even get the year right. I think it might have been 20. Is at Morningside College in Sioux City, Iowa. Had a really good staff there that they had our speed trainers before I got there. So that was awesome. And our pitching coach was very, very forward thinking. Used me to help create some things on the pitching side too, because I was just kind of like a Swiss Army knife until they really figured out what I wanted to do. Year went pretty well, but after that year, I didn't go back there. I ended up going to Concordia, which is another NAIA in the same conference, a little closer to home. Obviously, they have a pretty significant track record of winning, both just before I got there and since. They've been to, I think, 2 NAIA World Series. That's as good of a player development small college as you're going to find in the country. So really fit in there. Spent a very, very small amount of time at a JUCO in Oklahoma. But while I was down there, I got offered a job closer to home with a lot more money at Simpson College, which was a D3. And that's where that's where I really got to kind of have the keys to something. I basically got control of developing all the hitters, basically planning all the practices. And we had some of our tools there. But Tanner, obviously, as you know, that spring is when I accepted the internship to come out to Seattle. And that was, holy cow, 3 years ago now. Time flies.
Yeah, I had to fight pretty hard to talk you into that one.
Yeah, I do remember being, it was a pretty easy decision to come out, but the timing of it was terrible because we weren't quite we were winning, which was cool. I remember we got to the conference tournament and everybody at school was like, holy cow, this is great. And I was like, well, can we win a couple games in the conference tournament before we start celebrating, please? But I remember after we got bounced, it was like, how soon can I get to Seattle? But no, I had a conversation with a former player of mine last night who's actually looking to get into coaching. And he asked me if coaching in college prepared me for where I am now. And I said 100% it did, especially the fact that I was at the small college level, because you're forced to develop the players. It's not like we're coaching in the SEC and we can recruit a guy who was potentially getting drafted and just let him go hit 20 pumps and not have any role in it whatsoever. You are forced to learn not only how to develop players, but how to develop players with less, because you don't have that much fun.
Very limited resources.
Yeah, exactly. As I mentioned, I think there was only one school I was at that had the speed trainers, and it was the very first one. So very, very limited resources, space. And that ended up actually helping a ton with being down here in Arizona and having a smaller space than we do up in Washington. So it was kind of funny that he just so happened to text me that last night. So we talked about it a little bit, but yeah, the college coaching experience has absolutely led to all of this, but specifically at the small college level. And I know Boyer can say the same.
Yeah. It's cool that you mentioned that, because that's the first thing I recommend to any of the guys who have trained with us for a couple years. And when they get done playing, a lot of times the really good invested type of trainees are interested in getting into coaching, specifically interested in working at Driveline at one of our facilities. But the first thing I tell, for the most part, for the first thing I tell all those guys is like, go get some experience somewhere else. Like obviously you know this very well. I think you do a good job here. But the best thing for you is to go somewhere else, try to apply a little bit of what you know, or at least think you know. But you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot because you won't necessarily have all the resources you have here. Almost definitely not going to have a biomechanics lab unless you're at like Wake Forest, right? Probably not going to have a hit tracks. If you do, it's probably chilling on entertainment mode or broken 85% of the time. Maybe you have a pitching machine. It's probably not going to be an iPitch, not something that's going to be able to mix pitches for you. You might have blast. You might have a couple of them, things like that. We're lucky enough here to have all these resources. So it's like much easier to get coaches up to speed in that sense. But like the best thing for these guys in their development is to go somewhere else and deal with working through not having resources, finding ways to be innovative as far as like putting together practice plans and developing guys that way. So yeah, that's something I always recommend to guys who want to work here. And it's on that same note, right? Like that's one of the things I really care about with applicants. It's like, yeah, it's cool if you have pro playing experience or you coached at a Power 5 for a long time, things like that. But like the guys who tend to do the best are the guys who have a track record of developing guys, getting guys better with next to no resources, right. Like the JUCO grinder types of coaches, the guys at the small D2s, NAIs, D3s in the middle of nowhere who have half of a cage and they have to hit in the snow half of the fall. So those are the guys who find ways to get guys better, get really creative, have like the best solutions, they're the best problem solvers at the end of the day. And that's the thing that really works well when you're looking to develop guys. If you can do that with limited resources, you're going to be really fucking good at it with a ton of resources.
Yeah, no doubt. It was funny rounding out the conversation that I had with Dalton. Shout out Dalton Nelson. Last night was like, if anything, at my current job now, it's like you'll get on me for not using the tech enough, and not being data driven enough. And it's not because I don't want to. It's just because I'm so used to not having it, even though I've been here for 3 years. Yeah. It's like I'm just so
like
used
a double-edged
to it.
Sword. You don't necessarily you spent so long being successful without it. It's almost like you don't need it all the time. Right. But it's just the end of the day, it's just going to help you and make your life easier.
Yeah, for sure.
Boy, what do we got, man? Tell us about yourself.
It's basically the opposite of kind of what you guys were just explaining at Lansing.
Kind of got a little wild story here.
You said what?
You got a little bit of a wild story here.
Oh yeah. Before I came to the first internship at Driveline, I was doing some nuclear engineering and was just kind of getting bored of that. I just wanted to get back into the game. I had been like 2 years removed from baseball then, and just wanted to get back into it. Really just missed like competing, And so, I mean, the trained one kid that really just made me fall in love with coaching. And, ever since I met him, his name's Gabriel Ellison, plays for ASU Mount Home. And ever since I met that kid, I just wanted to get back into coaching because he had that same passion I had for the game. But I mean, when I was playing, I had no idea what bat speed was. No one ever used the word bat speed, and I played for 6 years. So like I had no idea what any of this stuff was. Basically reach out to him. I don't know if you remember the email I sent you, Stokey, but I was basically describing Traj. But I had no idea that they actually had machines like that yet. Like, that's
a little foreshadowing. We are definitely going to talk about Traj at some point on this episode, so stick around.
Yeah. And so anyway, long story short, reach out to you guys, basically tell Watson, hey, like I'm coming to Arizona, whether you give me the internship or not, just gonna let you know I'm moving like in a few weeks.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there if I have to. I'll get set up on a training plan and pay my way in there to learn.
That was the plan. I was like, if I don't get it, I'll just do engineering and just hop in and train and try and learn that way. So,
So for what it's worth, on my end, my reader's like, this guy's insane.
Yep.
We have to hire him.
Same.
He's insane. We have to hire him.
Yep.
And it was definitely the right decision both times.
Yeah, that was it was a very interesting start. But to kind of just reinforce that, it's like I did not know a lot at all. So the first internship was just trying to learn as much as I could from everybody. Like, there's just zero ego in it, and it was all just a fresh mind, like how I wanted to attack player development. So everything that I learned in that first internship, I, take to Lansing. And when I first got there, didn't quite know what to expect, but I'm gonna hit this one on the head before we kind of dive into what they have. But like,
okay,
yeah, Coach Cutter there did a phenomenal job with that place. Like, laid the groundwork.
Oh yeah.
Like, I would be remiss if I like didn't talk about him a little bit, because what he did and the things they have is amazing. So we had like 5 mini hacks. We had blast, we had K-vest, we had hit tracks, we had every single implement we have here. We had plyo balls, we had smash balls, we had med balls, PVC pipes, like everything except for like eye pitch and like the big ticket like motion capture lab, like we had at Lansing. Also had pulse, TrackMan, had a massive indoor with 7 cages.
This is insane.
I mean, it was literally
a lot
like
of Power Fives that don't have all these bells and whistles.
Yeah. And I was like, this is crazy. And he had a really good system that pretty much meshed perfectly with who I am and what I had just done, which was he allotted 80% of the team's total practice time to just offense. So he built it like a business. So every day you'd have the practice plan and it'd be like 80% we're going to hit, 20% we're going to field, or we're going to sprint that day or something like that. And I mean, it's kind of no surprise why we had a top 5 offense 2 years in a row. It's like that's what we focused on. And through the player development side of it, I tried to do exactly what we do at Driveline, but just with K-vest. So even though I didn't have to get dicey with like, I have one machine in this, like I had to go in and like learn how to make my own little report kind of. Okay. Because like K-vest just shows you like one swing to swing. And sure, I mean, you can like see averages of a like time span, if you know what I mean, like in K-vest. But I made my own little report for that. And I did the same thing with blast. Like I had to make my own systems to like track all the data. So that's where a lot of the creativity came in. Because I came from Driveline, he pretty much handed me the keys like right away. And that was a lot. You learned fast. Coaching is a lot more when you're trying to do it really well. It's a lot more than I think people think, because it's not pretty.
It's insane. I had a really similar experience. So
not
like
pretty.
I coached at Arizona Christian, small NAIA school in like North Phoenix. Played there when I was done playing, still had school, and it was just like, hey, like I'm just gonna hang out at practice and help. And then like pretty quickly I was just working with a bunch of hitters, and I just stayed around. I talked to coach into like let me travel, and I just worked with hitters all year. And then going into the next year, the actual hitting coach who had been in baseball for like 50 years, from player, cup of coffee in the big leagues, all-star in Japan, minor league manager, minor league field coordinator, scout, he'd like done all of it. And like after that first year, he was just like, you're gonna be the hitting coach next year. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? And it was basically, so I like went to the head coach about it, and he was like, yeah, you're the guy, like whatever you want, here's the keys, do whatever you want. And I'm 23 years old, like I don't know what the hell I'm doing, in charge of 40 hitters on 2 teams. Like it was insane. And it's a lot, you're right. And I didn't have all the resources. I went and interned at Driveline the year after that, actually. So I had a little similar experience, like trying to implement things after the fact. But like you said at the beginning, it's like it's completely overwhelming when real first coaching experience, you're just handed the keys to the offense. It was awesome. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I learned a ton. If I could go back, and we'll get into this with you here in a second, if I could go back, I would change damn near everything, but also handle things pretty close to the same way I did.
Yep.
If that makes any sense.
Everything.
Yeah, I would change damn near everything, but like also keep it pretty similar.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, go ahead, keep going.
No, I mean that's that kind of thing. Like I was I was responsible for the daily practice plan with the hitters. And since we had those 6 or 7 cages when we would hit inside, my guys never had the same day twice. Never. Like each cage was something a little different. It'd be like barrel load, fastballs, top of the zone, or like it would just always be something in one cage, and then you'd move to the next and you'd have something else. We put it on like a timer. So it was like they'd go through 7 rounds, 10-minute rounds. And so doing that every day was, I created hundreds of environments and it was in a short amount of time. But I also was responsible for the weight room. So I kind of took that one on myself because we didn't have Boyer time. We didn't have a guy. We didn't have a weights guy. So I relied on the guys I met here, called them for some help and programmed them the way that we would here, but just had to do kind of more like more of a cookie cutter thing for the whole team because I didn't know it well enough to go individually. But
for sure.
But yeah, so I did the hitting too, and then was charged with just everything pretty much offensively.
Tell me how zooming out a little bit here. Tell me how you set up the fall, like your plan for the fall, winter development, getting into the spring. Like you zoom out that YTP on just that fall handful of month window from like August to December. How'd you set that up? You obviously did some stuff with assessments in K-Vest. I know you used Blast and things like that a lot, but like what was the plan? And this specifically is like getting into like giving other coaches ideas on things they can use during their fall seasons.
Yeah. We're 100% going to get into what I would change here as well. Because I found out about everything super late. Like I knew I was going to get the job. He was like, yeah, we start in like a week and a half. So I got there a little late and then had a little health injury thing when I was moving down there. So that got me there a little later. So I missed our initial testing period. But as a new coach going in a brand new environment, I was wanting to feel it out before I really kind of just changed it, if that makes sense. And so that first little part of it, I was like, I need to respect what these guys have done because this is a winning program. They had just got off a insane year offensively. So I'd say the very first part, I was just trying to like learn and see how I could like positively affect it because I knew they were doing a lot of things right. Looking out though, my goal was just to basically try and get 3 tests in and train bat speed on the same days we lifted. Going through the fall, because we played games, that was kind of hard to do, like with the whole team. So anytime that it fell on a day that we could, we just ripped bat speed days. So my goal...
Real quick, tell me why you want guys lifting on bat speed days.
Yeah, just want the CNS like to everything that's going to deplete it on that day. Like just add all that up so that the next day is a rest day and can focus on different types of, things. Just
main thing there is just like it's like an easier way to balance workload, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's different from like hitting and pitching, obviously. But like on the pitching side, you're gonna have your high days, you're gonna have your low days, recovery days, things like that, where you're not gonna push the intensity. On the hitting side, for the most part, you don't have like that same type of injury risk. So it's like you're going to hit a ton, you're going to throw a ton, you're going to take a ton of ground balls. Like in fall practices, you're going.
Yeah.
Right. So like an easier way to kind of like balance the workload and try to optimize for recovery is like line up the high stressor days on the same days. Right. So it's like, all right, you're going to lift today. This is going to be like your high intensity bat speed day. You're going to kind of blow it out on this side. Tomorrow, we'll get it a little bit more like bats at ball, maybe mechanical type of stuff on the swing side, not lifting, probably not going to do a bunch of sprinting or anything that day. So it's like you're still going to have a bunch of training volume, but like the intensity level has to be a little bit different so you can kind of like balance your workload over time.
Yeah.
If you're just blowing it out every single day, you're going to be completely cooked, like you mentioned, trying to optimize your central nervous system a little bit.
Yeah.
So you can recover and actually start seeing your results.
Yeah, and then you can just completely shift the focus too. Like when it's a bat speed day, you can just like really get after it, have like less worry about everything else. Like what the goal is. But that's just trying to do blocks like that all throughout the fall. Once we got done with games, started getting them to lift 4 days a week, and we were in the gym 5 days a week. until I made a deal with them that if they came 15 minutes early to do mobility every day, I'd give them a day off from the weight room. Because that's why we were going 5 days a week. I'd make them come in and do yoga or something like that to really just hammer mobility. So yeah, the team unanimously decided that they would just show up 15 minutes early and do mobility instead of 5 days a week. So
it's going to be a little bit better to do it pretty.
Yeah, that was kind of how we went through the fall. Just started really building. Since it's a cold weather state, we had to be indoors a lot for that second half. So a lot of it was indoor work. But the one thing I'd change,
a lot of those bat speed gains came from the priority in the weight room and actually maintaining that lifting programs throughout the life of the fall. And it's cool. Like earlier on, we were playing games and stuff. What was it, 3 days a week? So there was less volume in the weight room side, and then like when you're done, you shifted it more to 4 or 5 days a day with mobility. So it's like that's another thing when you're talking about like balancing your workload and planning out throughout the fall, how you can switch things up. Like a lot of schools have very limited practice windows. Like for me in Arizona, like we had like a certain amount of weeks throughout the year we could use. In the fall, since we had good weather, we weren't like, hey, we're going to blow it all at the beginning and do indoor individual stuff later. We spread it out. We'd go like a couple weeks on. We'd overseed the grass here and have a week and a half off. Then we'd do things here. But like the way you can spread it out based off your constraints is like different points in time. You can like change the volume in the weight room, change the volume on like the actual on-field practice side of things, change the volume in the cage if you have an indoor, things like that. But the other day, you're really just trying to optimize for bat speed, moving the bat faster, getting stronger, generally being more powerful. It's like all things are going to translate to the field.
Yeah. And that, I mean, with any coach, whatever your philosophy is, like pretend you had the wrong hitting philosophy. Even if you did that, you'd be better at the wrong thing. Like if you just trained the right way, like, you know what I mean? So, one thing I would definitely change. I tried to wait a little while until I got into like some mechanical stuff with guys, because we had a ton of freshmen, and experience can't be valued enough. Like when you have experience on your team that sets the culture, it matters a ton.
Well,
and
especially
we
at
had
the junior college
your
level.
leaders.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What was that, Waddy?
Especially at the junior college level. It's such a short window for experience to play a tractor.
Yeah, you're like very rarely going to have the third year guy.
Right.
So like your sophomores really have to step up and be leaders. If you have guys with that type of skill set as a freshman, like those guys have to step up and contribute in that sense right away. And honestly, you're in a better position if your freshmen are able to step up and be leaders on the team. Yeah, it's like they're going to be able to like bring that culture into year 2, and it's going to completely change your life as a coach. Make things so much easier.
And we had a couple of those third year guys like Shane Juday, Hunter Lay. Those guys had been at Driveline for 2 summers.
Yeah.
Waddy?
Yep.
Yeah. And so those guys had just left, and they just put up monster numbers. Hunter Lay had 100 hits and like 23, 24 bombs, I think.
Yeah.
So like you lose that bat, right? And Juday had 10 homers. Bright had, I think, 8 or 9. And it's just like you lose those bats, and now you have all freshmen. So wrapping that kind of up with the thing I would have done different is I would have banned talking about mechanics and your swing if you're between the lines on the field. I would have like banned it for that team. And I would have been like, it is only external, like ball flight goal and scoring a run. Like just becoming savages at scoring runs. Like I would have set a completely different tone, because when I came in, I kind of had like more facility mindset, and that team needed something a little different. So that's like by far my biggest change.
Yeah, and that point you made there about the getting kind of stuck in the facility mindset and like being further away from like the actual game and realizing you need to like score runs and be productive and do jobs throughout the game. That's all like situationally dictated. Like that's exactly why the like long-term trainee that wants to work here, I tell them to go away and coach someone 100%. Else first. Because it's like you take a step away from your actual playing days, and like you're going to completely look at things differently, damn near right away. And it happens pretty quickly, especially when you have some responsibility for like running a practice yourself. Like I talked to like a long-term trainee who's a first year, well, it's second year coaching technically, but he's at a D1 right now, Youngstown State. I talked to Dylan Moser this morning, about like this exact same type of stuff. Like he's putting together sick environments, doing really cool things with his guys this fall. And he's learning a ton more and more every day. And every time I talk to him, he's like, man, I'm so glad I didn't just like go work in a facility right away.
Yeah.
Just like had this experience on the field. It makes you look at player development differently. That's why I'm really glad that I had college coaching on-field experience first before coming here. There's a lot of the reason I wanted to get both of you guys in here to talk about this stuff, because you guys have similar experience. So I can't say enough how valuable that is and how much you're going to learn. That's why it's so cool at a young age when you're actually able to get the keys and just experiment and have the freedom and autonomy to try different things. You're going to be wrong and do stupid shit all the time. You just need to be able to hot route and figure out like what and why, where it went wrong, and how to make the adjustments. Exactly what you're saying right now. It's like, this is what you would have done differently. You came from the facility, started getting introduced to biomechanics, how all this stuff correlates to your bat path, your batted ball data, what all that means for your production. And then like you got out to the field with a bunch of guys where that information was probably going over their head. You're like overcomplicating things to an extent, the 18-year-old kid who just left high school and is in college and like a brand new experience. And now you're talking to them about like their early hip extension and what that does to their spine angle and their attack angle and how that impacts their ball flight and contact quality. And it's like, holy shit, man. Just like, I want you to backspin it in the gap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just do that.
Yeah. And I tried to keep it out. Like I tried to tone it down as much as I could. And it's almost, you just have to kind of protect them a little bit. And I don't think I definitely, like, I didn't overkill it, but I would have changed the focus. That's for sure.
Well, at some point it hits you, right? Where it's like the penalty for all of this is like winning or losing. Like when we're at our jobs now, like that's still, we know that, like we're trying to help these hitters get better in the game. But like when you are on the field and all your guys are wearing the same color, whether it's the fall or the winter and you're inside or outside, it's like you lay your head on the pillow at night as a coach and it's like, are we going to win more games because of what we're doing right now? And like, it's something that I think we have to do a really good job of in our current jobs of like remembering, because we can't just get caught up in like exactly what you're talking about, Boyer, is like, are we just like building swings, or are we making robust hitters that are going to go help their teams have a better offense?
Yeah. Rather than just like solely focusing on the timing of a guy's hip shoulder separation, right? It's like, hey, we want to improve your separation in this way so that you're going to be more adjustable and able to cover more pitches, more zones in the game and still be able to hit the ball hard when you're off time. Like it's like really translating that message and like really getting it across and like going about things in the facility side that will actually translate to the game.
Oh yeah.
Like it's like, yeah, on paper, more hip shoulder separation is going to help you move the bat faster. Right. But just because you're getting more doesn't mean you're going to be able to control it. The timing of that's really important. How you're going about creating that separation, how you're going about creating bat speed, making attack on changes, whatever the hell it is, like it has to be in the context of how it's going to translate to the field. Because if it doesn't, you're just wasting your time.
100%. Yeah. It's kind of funny as you guys were talking, I remembered something from my time at Concordia. So like in the fall, I wasn't our like head hitting coach. Bryce Berg was. He got hired by the Twins during the fall and winter time period. So like I was just there to, yes. I was just there to like help. And like I had known the head coach before, and he knew like I had kind of a personal situation going on, and he wanted to bring me on staff. And I think it was more like personal than professional, which is really, really cool. But it became very professional very fast, right? Because like that guy's gone, I got to run the offense now. And I will never forget this. We go to McPherson, Kansas for our first game, and it is colder than shit. And I jog around to the third base coach's box, and Wade Council gets in the box, and I have this overwhelming feeling of calm just like rush over me, because like I think it was probably credit Coach Dupik for saying this before the game, but like he told everybody, he's like, hey, you guys are ready. Like we don't have to do it. You're ready. Like we don't have to do anything anymore. And I think it hit me in the coach's box. It was like, you know what? I think everything that we did was worth it. Like this is going to work. Like these guys are ready. And so like, that's why I brought up the whole like penalty of wins and losses. It's like, it hits you in the face really quick. And I probably got a little lucky with that group, but like I'll never forget that feeling on a baseball field ever.
There might not be a better one, man.
No.
As a coach, at least, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not panicking, you're not nervous. You know your guys are prepared. You know, like as long as they're executing for the most part, like you're going to be successful. But yeah, on that note, last thing before I want to pivot to like pro offseason stuff, getting into like in the gym and AZ, Traject, and all that good stuff. You mentioned there you felt like everything you guys did was right. What does that mean? What were the things you think you did that prepared the team to be ready to go? And like anything you got on that note too, Boyer. Last thing I want to get on the fall training, like this, like kind of like more of like macro scale zoom out. Like what are things coaches need to make sure they're hitting on in the fall?
Yeah.
To make sure guys are ready for the spring.
That's a great question. I think like, I don't know if you remember this much, Tanner, but I certainly do from like when I was going through the onboarding process with you. I had guessed correctly a lot of times. Like I didn't really know why this environment or this drill was the right thing to do, but just like intuitively, like I got a little lucky with like picking the right stuff. But also like speaking for Concordia specifically, like we had a really, really good foundation to build off of. And I think the main thing that I want to get across in this answer, it also segues into the pro off season, is yes, we were building like at a small college, you've got like this large bucket of guys who just are not ready yet. So it's like, okay, we need to build an engine. We need to build speed. We need to build confidence. Like they probably weren't even close to the best player on their high school team if they're coming from like a metropolitan area. But if they're coming from like small town Nebraska, maybe they were. And now it's a culture shock that they're not the best player on the team. So like you've got this big group of guys. It's basically like a JV roster, right? That you have to build them, right? And then you've got your guys who are impacting the game all the time. It's like, okay, we got to make our weaknesses better. We got to make sure our strengths stay the same. But the most important thing that we can do is while we're building those things, we're training them in very, very difficult and uncomfortable environments. Because
why?
If we make practice harder than the game, they get into the box and it's not a cakewalk, but there's like I kind of talked about the feeling that I had in the coach's box. It's like there's this overwhelming sense of calm. It's like I've done this. Like it's not like I get in the box for my first at bat and it's like, well, I wonder how this is going to go. It's like, no, you've done stuff that's already harder. And by training at high velos, by training at different angles with different spin, not only are you developing skills, but you're also developing the ability to understand, like, I can challenge myself. I can do hard things and I'm not going to die. Like everything's fine. And not only am I not going to die, like I have had success in really difficult environments. So now it just becomes competing, fun, being out there with the boys trying to win. Like we always talked about that McPherson trip. I remember like it was like the fourth or fifth inning. We literally scored like 16 or 17 runs. It was crazy. But all the guys started talking about happy vans, like getting in the van to drive back to school. And it was a happy van ride. And it's like all of a sudden those things become the primary, and like the fear and anxiety of failure becomes so secondary because you're so well prepared for what's about to come, because you put in the work in more difficult environments than you're going to see in the game.
Yeah, it's one of the most common things that hitting is like the hardest thing in the world, right? In sports. Okay. There's harder things in the world, obviously. But hitting's close, right? It's in the conversation for hardest things in the world.
Sure.
It's like one of the most common things that happens is just like the game is too fast for people, or like you're in the box and it's like you can't pick anything up and it's like we don't feel good. It's like game speed is just like way too fast for you. And a lot of times that is simply because you just aren't challenging yourself enough in practice. You aren't seeing anything close to game speed at all. Like it is one of the most common things you see when a hitter comes in here for their first assessment. They're just like getting torched by a 60-mile-an-hour fastball, Little League World Series setup in the lab. And it's like, when was the last time you saw any velo? And they're like, like I play games, but like I don't like to hit off the machine. I feel like it messes up my swing. And it's like, no, you just suck at it because you don't practice it, right? It's just that simple, and you haven't done it in a long time. So it's just like it's the same idea like for the big league guy. It's like you walk into spring training, your first at bat, first live BP or whatever, right? And the guy's, he's like 85% and he's throwing 92. But the fastest pitch you've seen all offseason was a 40-mile-an-hour BP, negative 22 descent angle fastball. It's just like the fastball on the game is going to be unbelievable. Your eyes can't track that. You're going to freak the hell out and panic. And the best hitters in the world are going to adapt quickly, right?
Yeah.
Like one of the simplest ways to avoid that is just training game representative environments. Make it more challenging, make it faster, put speed, timing constraints on it, add in different bats, whatever, right? But you just need to make those environments in practice as close to game-like as possible. And like a great deal of the skill acquisition research is going to point towards like any changes, improvements you make in those game representative, game-like environments has the highest likelihood to actually translate to the field. And at the end of the day, that is the whole purpose of our jobs. It's like what we're doing with guys has to translate to the field. They have to be productive. They have to find ways to help their teams win. And if we're not doing that for them, then we're doing them a disservice. And it's like the same thing you mentioned, like this kind of parlays into the pro off season. It's just like pros do not train hard enough.
No, they do
not.
That
is very, very obvious, right? It's like these guys are the best athletes in the world and they're going to adapt. They're going to find ways to get by it. But like in the off season, the guys just don't like training in challenging environments. And don't get me wrong, like hitting off the eye pitch, mixing a fastball, a two seam, a sweeper, and like a changeup that looks like an opposite hand breaking ball at game speeds is like, that sucks. Yeah. That's like really hard training. It's not fun. And like, don't get me wrong, like this shouldn't be like 100% of your training, but like if you were going to allocate 100% of your training to like one end of the spectrum, it's like you're just like hitting like really easy environments off flips or tee or whatever, or like just taking a bunch of live mixed pitch at bats off the eye pitch. Like I'm going to take that guy who's hitting off the eye pitch all off season 100% of the time. It's like that guy has much, much higher likelihood of what they're doing translating to the field. Now you need to blend it. You need to have some of both. And like you can progress that throughout the off season, throughout certain days in practice, whatever, but you have to have some level of game speed in your training, or you just like really can't expect to be productive once you first see it. You're screwed.
100%. And to wrap up the conversation on the college side of things from my end of it, and I know Boyer can say the same here. The true unlock for like that to actually like you're gonna see like return, like you're gonna see a return on your investment no matter what. Like your hitters are gonna get better, but like the buy-in from the hitters and the athletes and the team in general, like the culture that you've like built at your place is what makes it take that next step. So like, yeah, you're going to have hitters come in and you've got like a two-headed monster machine set up. Like at Concordia, we had like a E-hack that, or not an E-hack. We had a big hack that was on like long legs and then a hack literally right in front of it, underneath it on shorter legs. And I remember taking the good balls and feeding them out of one machine, and it was like a fastball, and the bad ones turned into a changeup. And like the guys loved it. Like they wanted to do it. The success rate was super low, but they wanted to do it. And it's like, okay, if you have a group of individuals who actually want to do this, like they're about it, like that's where like the actual like second level, third level, like skyrocket gains are going to come from. And it's hard to create buy-in sometimes, especially in the pro off season, because you've got a lot of guys with where we're at now as a company who are coming in here who have had a lot of success at the major league level. And it's like, well, I've been doing it this way for a really, really long time. Why would I change anything? And it's really hard to create buy-in there.
Yeah. And that's fine with those guys. Like this has worked for you.
Yep.
But like there's like more levels to your game. Like you can be better. You're on like a Hall of Fame trajectory, but man, like your bat speed is regressing. It's like your production is going to fall off. Mm-hmm. It's like we have to find ways to train that. It's like, all right, yeah, we're going to get you to buy in and like training some bat speed and flips, maybe overhand front toss, maybe a little bit with smash balls, but like you don't want to see velo, right? And when you do, you don't want to put your blast sensor on because like the data is going to look bad and it's going to make you feel bad when your front toss bat speeds are like mid 70s and then you get off velo and you're sitting like 67. You're going to feel bad and you don't want to see that. But the reality is you're just hiding from an issue. Right. It's like this issue isn't going away because you don't put the blast sensor on and care about moving the fastest environment. It's like you can either worry about it now and deal with it and find a way to improve it, or you're going to have to worry about it in the season when you're struggling the first month of the year or even in the second month of the year, whatever it is. Like at some point you're going to run into an issue, and like this thing that you ignored and you were afraid of in the off season is going to come back to bite you when it really matters.
100%. Yeah, I'm not gonna like name names or anything, but two off seasons ago, I threw a mixed pitch up on the eye pitch, and I'll never forget it. Mark Cano was like, "Well, we got to be big boys," and like that was literally verbatim what he said. He was like, "We got to be big boys," and like
Got to be big boys today.
he hit the whole time, and we had another hitter who broke his bat 2 rounds in and basically left. And I mean, you can check the numbers. Mark had a better year. Like I'm not saying that's how it works every time, but like.
Yeah, it doesn't. There's random variance mixed in there, obviously, right? But that brings up like one of Bodie's favorite stories in the pro off season a few years ago. And by a few years ago, I'm thinking it was probably like winter 2018, maybe 19, so long ass time ago. But in the gym, we were doing live at bats, and we had Adam Brett Walker. Dude had like a cup of coffee, like a ton of success in the minor leagues. He's over in the NPB, just absolutely raking the last couple of years. But he was in training that off season, and I believe it was Jeff Hoffman on the mound throwing live, and like that was the day he had set our facility record off the mound. It was like 100 point something, but like 100 miles an hour, indoor mound, in turfs, fucking crazy, right? Yeah. And our old facility, it was really dark. A bunch of the lights were burnt out because our cage was old, shitty, balls going through the net and breaking lights. Like we were grinding in an old facility, so it was dark, hard to hit for a hitter. And like Jeff Hoffman's just like humming upper 90s before he gets started, hits 100. Adam Brett Walker is like about to go in. All the hitters standing around. It's like a bunch of indie ball guys, things like that. A couple college guys floating around. Everyone's just like, holy shit, it's so fast. Like, what the hell? This sucks. And like Adam Brett Walker basically turned around and said something along the lines of, it's like, you bitching about it is not going to make it not 100. And then jumped in and hit a homer immediately. Just like hit a homer off like an upper 90s fastball. So like, that guy's a dog, right? Like that's the type of guy you want.
Yep. And
like back to the point you were making earlier, right? Or I guess I was making earlier. You mentioned this with like the culture of your players, like they want that challenge. Like that's like a clear sign in like recruiting, right? Like those are the type of guys you want in your program, the type of culture guys you need to take you from like you're gonna get a little bit better, but like to really take you to like that second, third next year and like really take off. It's the same thing I mentioned earlier about Boyer, right? It's like this guy's insane.
Yeah.
He's going to come here. He's moving here regardless. He's maybe going to find a job. Maybe he's going to work at Driveline. If not, he's going to train there. And it's like, oh, okay, this guy's nuts in the best way possible. I want that guy on our team, right? It's like that's the same type of thing you need in culture building on your roster, right? It's just like it was like obvious to me. It's like Boyer, this is the type of guy we need. Like this guy's nuts in the best way possible. Let's get him in here. Like
100%.
I don't know what he knows, but we're gonna find out. He's been fucking awesome.
Yeah, no doubt.
The culture piece is insanely huge. Like I would pretty much just be echoing what you guys said. So I won't go into it too much, but I just know that when you're not at Driveline, one of the most respected places, like that buy-in comes in different ways.
Oh yeah.
Like you got to be there every day. Like you can't.
You got to earn that.
Yeah. I just had one of my players that I used to coach call me, and he's like, my coach is always talking to us about, you just don't want it bad enough. He goes, I call him up on a Sunday morning. Hey, coach, can you unlock the cage? No, I'm busy, man. It's like, okay, I don't want it bad enough. It's like, you can't do that. Like it's a whole lifestyle being a coach. You're going to tell guys to buy in and that they need to work really hard. You need to work harder or just as hard as your guys. And when focusing on culture, I'll never forget the one thing I learned from Cut About Culture. I learned a lot, but the one that really stuck was, you got your top third, your bottom third, and then you got fence sitters is how he called them. So it's like your top third is so bought in. It's the canna, right? He's like, he's willing to jump in and just go. And he's like, we got to do this. You got your bottom third, the guy that leaves probably, right? Breaks the bat, he's upset. And then you got the fence sitters that are like in the middle. And if you focus on the fence sitters, basically getting like that first, that middle third to like really buy in, it drags everybody up. But if you focus on the guys that don't want to do it, it's like you're wasting your time. Like they're already down there. They're either going to get phased out or they're going to decide, hey, the majority is now bought in. I got to go. So
they're going to start to want to make a change.
Yeah. Buy-in's huge.
Yeah. I mean, look what Moser's doing at Youngstown, right? Like he's only been there for a couple months, and like, you can get on Twitter and be like, oh man, this guy's just getting a bunch of Driveline hitters as recruits. Well, okay. They know how to train. like that you don't currently see the effects 5 years from now that's going to have on that program.
It's
Like,
gonna be insane.
yeah, because the incoming freshmen 2 to 3 years from now are going to be looking at Jed and Parker Schwacke and forgive me for not knowing the other guys that are there, but like they will have set not just a culture, but a training expectation that is just the standard now. So like
Yeah.
the
And
unlocks
that just
for
makes
those
your life
guys are,
easier as a coach.
yes,
Like we talked about
right,
earlier with the JUCO guys, like you get your freshman guys to be leaders, step up like that, like help set the culture and like enforce things in training, right? It's only going to lead to more buy-in and it's only going to make your life easier as a coach. And then you can focus on more of the specific stuff, right? Like, or you can like lean into the fence sitters while your leaders that are in like the most bought in can like start to try to bring up the guys who aren't bought into it or like don't understand it or don't care. When most cases, those guys are the ones who just like don't know how to deal with any kind of failure. A lot of times it's the guys you're talking about, Waddy, like the guy from like the small town school, like the big fish, small pond. They've been just like the best player in their life doing whatever the hell they're going to do. Best player in the area their whole life doing whatever they're going to do. And then they get somewhere where they're not the big fish in the small pond anymore. And like a lot of times these guys just don't know how to deal with that failure. Yeah. So like one of the best things you could do as like a coach, a leader in that position is like teach them how to deal with it, teach them how to work through it, let them know it's okay that you're going to struggle on this. Like that is by design. It's like this environment is supposed to make things really difficult for you. It's supposed to expose issues. That way you can learn, I can learn, we can find ways to improve. And then that's when you like really start to get those next levels of production.
Yeah.
We've been rambling a lot about the fall. This is sick.
Good point.
I want to get into the pro off season stuff really quick. Do you guys got anything else before we move on?
Cool. Could talk about it forever.
Yeah, I was going to say, we could keep going.
Might have to turn this into 2 episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting in the pro off season, right? So like we talked a bunch about the fall, like what coaches need to think about, training in general. There's going to be a lot of recurring themes getting into the off season training here with pro guys specifically. But yeah, just want you guys to talk a little bit about pro off season training in Arizona, what that looks like, what we do, what pros should be thinking about, whether they're training with us or not, things like that. So what do we got?
I mean, yeah, I'll start on it just because this will be Boyer's first and a half pro off season, I suppose. But yeah, like just the first thing I gotta say before moving any further is just like how much it's improved from the past off seasons, from the facility in general, right? Like not just the tools we have, but just like the look and the feel of the space is drastically different. But yeah, we've had 2 years now of pro off seasons that we've been able to like look back on and be like, all right, what can we improve upon? And then in addition to that, just like the addition of a bunch of tools that we didn't have before. So got a standalone lab, right? That's markerless. So guys don't have to come in and get naked and hit anymore to start off there.
Yeah, mocap assessments are easier.
100%.
We have the force plates set up in Arizona now. So in the biomechanics assessment, knowing exactly how the body's moving, exactly how the bat's moving throughout the entire swing, exactly how you're using the ground, producing force, what that's leading to up the chain, ultimately how that affects your ball flight, your bat path, your ball flight, everything.
Right. Yeah. So we no longer have OptiTrack cameras on tripods inside the cage. Like we're actually in a good spot there. And the force plates have like going back to the very first thing we talked about when we started this was like getting used to working with less. I truly had kind of forgotten how valuable force plates are. So it's awesome that we got that now. And then just obviously the big ticket item being Traject. Like we're already cooking up. Like for guys that I am pretty certain are going to return. Like I've already got the rotations from the teams they see in their divisions, videos cut up, Arsenal is plugged into the app. So like if Richie Palacios had a bad time hitting against Luis Gil, it's like, hey man,
get ready to learn Luis Gil.
Get ready to hit Luis Gil a bunch this offseason. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's really sick. But what is Traject?
Yeah. Heck of a question. Well, if you're not sure, watch our video that we put out on Traject already.
A bunch of Traject content.
Yeah. And more on the way. But yeah, it's a pitching machine that you can basically program to. It's got a very large black front to it. that is on tracks and can move left to right, up and down. So what it does is there's a hole that the ball comes out of with a 3-wheel machine behind it. And the machine moves so that the hole goes to the proper like release point of a guy's like arm slot, both height and angle. And then on top
so the machine, I'm just going to summarize real quick.
Yeah, you're good.
Hold that thought.
Yep.
So like the machine, it's got a projector that shows like a video of the pitcher, right?
Correct.
And then the hole where the ball comes out, it moves relative to where the actual pitcher's release point is.
Correct.
Right. So like obviously like hitting off machines and things is awesome. You get game speed, things like that. Right. But the only way to move the machine is to like slide it over, slide it forward. You can obviously adjust it left, right, up and down, but to like change the release height, you got to change the height of the legs. You got to like move the machine left and right. With Traject, you just push a button, and not only does it give you like accurate release heights to that specific pitcher, it's going to give you the most realistic pitch physics.
Correct.
So it's like a machine that imparts gyro spin. Other machines don't really do that.
Correct.
So like it's going to be the most real. It's not only going to be like the most realistic, like visually looking at like the pitcher and like tracking an arm action. Obviously, live at bats is going to be better, but it's the closest thing you can get in a training setting without somebody throwing a ton of pitches to hitters. So like the visual appeal of it is like as close to the game as you're going to get. Obviously, it's not exactly the same, right? But it's pretty damn close.
Oh yeah.
And the release height is accurate. The pitch physics are going to be as close as you could possibly get to a game. Yeah, it is sick to say the least.
One of the biggest things that you hit on there is like the seam orientation stuff. So like we can do a great job developing hitters using mini hack and e-hack and iPitch, whatever. But like the fact of the matter is I'm standing there feeding the ball in a certain manner every time. With the Traject, it's like, okay, like Paul Sewald's a good example, right? Like his fastball has like a tremendous amount of like seam shifted movement. Well, if I can have the metrics for how that ball is released, in theory, the Traject will be able to replicate that action.
Sure. And then with Sewald too, is a guy that has like a unique release slot.
Exactly.
Like has the low slot, his fastball has like really unique movement. It's got a ton of carry, plays up even more from the low slot. Like it's just something that's damn near impossible to replicate with a normal machine.
Bingo. Yeah.
And this, you can do that, and then you could have a guy on the other end of the spectrum. Like you could have Justin Verlander throwing from like way over the top with carry and a big 12-6 breaking ball. Just at the push of a button. You don't have to go in and move the machine around, change the legs, anything like that.
Yeah. Yep. And on top of all that too, like we're going to have plenty of live at bats going on because we have a ton of pitchers that train with us, but then you're at the mercy of like their training protocol. Like they may be scheduled to throw on Friday and then they wake up Friday morning and go, this ain't the right business decision for me. And what are we going to do? Just go, no live ABs today. No, pivot.
Yeah, they might bang their live AB. Yeah, they could just like wake up that day and bang their live AB session and do a pitch design instead. Like that type of thing happens a lot. And the other thing is like the live ABs don't really get rolling until later in the offseason when these guys are worked up to that point in time. So it's like, you probably don't need to be taking a ton of live at bats at the beginning of your off season, right? But like having the ability to do so and seeing it off an arm rather than somebody dropping a ball on the machine, there's a ton of value there, even if you're just hitting a single pitch off the Traject. So it's just like another thing that's going to make the training closer to game, like more game representative, no matter how you go about doing it. And then, like you said, if we have live set up and like maybe it's a pitcher who's working on something and they're not throwing a bunch of strikes that day, so you're not going to get a bunch of like real game like swings off, and you want to get some, you can just go in and hit off the Traject for 20 minutes and get 15 at bats pretty quickly. Yeah. In a little bit more controlled setting.
And you've got hitters every year who like, they feel a type of way about a guy doing exactly that. Like he'll basically throw a pitch design, but in a live at bat environment. And you're just standing in the box like, I'm going to get ear-holed with one of these because like this guy doesn't know how to command it. So like, as much as I want to say, stop it, just get in the box, please. Like you can't control it in the game either. Now we at least have the option to be like, well, if you truly don't really want to take out that variable, we got an option for you.
Go ahead over here.
Yeah.
Basically everything he said is going to be a huge advantage with Traject. But like the thing that comes to mind for me, like we were just talking about thirds, right? And it's like, if you said all of Major League Hitting, say like a third is bought into what we do, pretend, right? And then say there's you guys in the middle that are like questioning it. It's like, oh, well, if I just focus on bat speed, my swing's going to be out of control. Or if I try and hit pull side all the time, I'm not going to be able to stay on changeups. Well, how about you come and test it every Tuesday, Thursday off real game pitching with Traj?
Bingo.
And like you're gonna see right there that the stuff we're working on is either A, working for you, or B, not. And you're just gonna get answers like week by week with these swing changes that you don't have to just take someone's word for $1 million motion capture lab. I mean, you just have to.
It's just another way to take the guesswork out of your training, man. It's just like another way to not guess. Yeah, it's like you're getting exposed. Like you're gonna make some swing changes. You're gonna try to make adjustments, try new things. Like you're adding speed, maybe making bat path changes. It's like you just need to stress test that and to see if it's actually gonna play. And like it might not. If it doesn't, it's cool because you can figure out that sooner and then like hot route the plan, hot route the programming. Or like maybe you're just in there and like you feel something different that you could like take with you into the training and like readjust for a couple days, and then you could like really start to take off when it clicks. Yeah, it's just like a more well-rounded training experience.
The biggest thing, man, I like Tanner, you could speak to this probably better than anybody, but like we see it year after year after year. Like we'll train either a new movement pattern or like whatever it is, right? And a guy is banging. They go to spring, they are banging. And then all of a sudden, like the taxes of the year start to wear on a guy, and like they default back to some bad habits, and then they don't know how to solve that problem, right? Well, now it's like, okay, we don't have to like work on a new movement pattern for an entire off season, and then the games come, and it's like, well, I hope this works. Like we can spend the entire off season not only training the movement pattern, but we can train it off a game-like environment. So it's like when you get into true like gameplay when it matters in May, June, July, whatever, it's like, hey, you did this off of live pitching, right? All off season. Like there should be no concerns whatsoever about like, okay, is my training going to stick? Well, we could test it every single week if it's going to stick or not.
Yeah. And then building off of that too, right? Like obviously you can like more quickly get the adjustments to translate to the game.
Right.
But like you can have like an amazing off-season training and make sick changes. And then, but at some point during the season, you're going to struggle with something. Like something's going to break down. You're going to have to try to work out of it. Doing this in your off-season too, like say you get 200 at-bats off Traj in your off-season and another 40, 50 off an actual arm, right? Like not only are you going to like start to translate the changes you're making, but you're going to run into issues at some point where you're like learning how to problem solve and like get through like this issue where like, okay, I'm not hitting the high fastball for whatever reason. Like I'm cutting breaking balls for whatever reason. I'm rolling over to the pull side too often on this specific pitch type. It's like rather than like waiting until you're in the middle of June, grinding through a 2 for 20 to figure out how to deal with your like loss of posture problem. It's like we have solved that to an extent, obviously. Like we have like come up with some level of solution. Like you have found a way to like solve that in your training environment. So like when that type of issue inevitably comes up later in the season, you can adjust faster and you can like mitigate the length of that slump.
Bingo.
Rather than going like 2 for 20, maybe you end up going like 2 for 11 and then you like get off the snide, you know, and like figure things out and turn it around faster. And like that's going to make a massive difference to your season long production if you're able to like cut down the length of those slumps. And like a lot of times the easiest way to do that is just more game representative training environments, whether before games or like definitely in the off season. You just need to do this stuff more often. Your skills and changes are going to translate better. And you're also going to like learn how to work through the problems faster in that game-like environment. So you're just not going to feel lost as often during the season. Every hitter on the planet has felt lost at some point, and you're going to feel almost definitely going to feel lost at some point during every season. It's like very rarely do you see a guy go 650 plate appearances where they're just absolutely dialed and banging at all times, aside from like Barry Bonds.
That's what I was
from like 2000 to 2004, right? Like it's like other than that, like look at Aaron Judge, like he's just having like an incredible season, and then like went through like a couple week stretches here and there where he's just really struggling. So it's like if you can find a way to like mitigate those types of things, like dude's just gonna hit 65, 70 homers. You know, he might break the record.
Yeah, and you mentioned struggling with like a certain pitch type too, and with Traj you can just dial that exact pitch type up. Like it'd be a lot better than out of the machines, even though you can finick with machines to like make a certain pitch type. But, say a guy struggles with like real, like some sinkers, right? That have like a lot of depth, just boom, you can just go sinker after sinker, right? So it's like, struggle with that pitch type, you also get to train that on repeat out of like seeing it out of the arm, out of the arm.
Yeah.
Right.
And most of these teams, like this, like shout out to Traject. Hopefully we boost their sales, but like most of these teams
You can't buy a Traject.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. We boost their rental agreements. Most of these teams have one now. Like, and honestly, if you don't, you're being negligent. So like these guys, the more reps they get off them, like Boyer was just talking about, it's like we've got plenty of hitters who have come in here that they'll have a good training day, or at least a valuable training day, even if the success rate wasn't high, and they like stow that away because they know, like they've been through it during the season. They know there's going to be a time that comes where they need to replicate that feel, or they need to replicate that ball flight or something. And it's like, I know exactly what environment I need to queue up in the cage before the game today. And they talk to whoever, one of their hitting coaches at whatever level they're at. And it's like, hey, I need this. Bing, bang, boom. They got it, and they're back to it, cutting the slump length way down.
Yeah. It's like I'm getting absolutely torched by the cut ride heater up and away.
Yep.
With like the low release slot type of guy. I'm just like perpetually late, perpetually under it. Barrel's not getting there. It's like, rather than just like looking at a bunch of video and doming yourself up for an hour and a half in front toss, it's like, sure, go do a little bit of that. Right. But like, hey man, why don't you just go hit some low release height cut ride heaters up and away off the trajectory and figure something out.
Learn by doing.
It's not as simple as just like, hey, go do this and figure it out, obviously. But like, you're going to have a better chance of like translating it and figuring it out, actually seeing it, than you are just like doming yourself up in like a slow, under control, like front toss environment, trying to find a move.
Yeah. And doing swing designs with traject, like with guys. Like you could do that too. Guy comes in, he feels good. He knows that, if he just gets in there and kind of hits a normal environment, that he'll have a lot of success. Wants to stress it a little more.
For sure. Yeah, and that's a thing that works really well for the guy that just like straight up has bad swing decisions, right? A guy who's like got really good bat speed, maybe really good bat to ball skills, like generally a really good hitter, but like they're getting themselves in trouble because they chase all the time and they have dog shit approach. All right, so you just use the trajectory, set it up for an hour, and just like work through it bats with a guy. Talk about approach, what they should be looking for against different types of arsenals, how they should try to cover a guy that has like a high fastball and a sweeper. You know what I mean? It's like you like work through these things in your training. Like that's this type of thing you can also translate to the game. Like it's not even just like making a swing change or a bat path change, right? It's just like learning how to like set up a game plan and work through an at bat against like certain arsenal types. Like we can bucket different types of pitchers, and you can just like spend like, hey, like today we're gonna work on hitting like the high carry fastball, like 1 standard deviation above, maybe 2 standard deviations above. It's like, okay, today we're going to maybe do like cut ride. We're going to do like heavy sinkers, right? That type of thing. Maybe the guy with like the extreme third base side horizontal approach angle who just like targets like backdoor sinkers and breaking balls off the plate away to get you to chase. It's like, we're just going to practice that. And you're going to like learn how to use that, like solve problems in that environment. Set it up beforehand with like some like maybe pull side angle toss or like pull side angle smash balls with a righty, mix in some training bats. And like, we're just going to go face that same horizontal approach angle off the machine and like as close to game like as you're going to possibly be able to get it. You're going to learn how to cover that bowling ball sinker that's running into you, right? You're going to learn how to sit on that and like lay off the breaking ball away. It's just like you can have the best game plan in the world and tell a guy to go try to execute it. If they've never really done it in a game, it's going to be hard to do so. It's just like another way that the trajectory in your training can provide a ton of value.
And like you kind of mentioned something that I've been thinking about a lot recently is like a lot of these guys with their off seasons, especially the ones that are playing like 150 games, right? Like they want to take their off seasons and like they want to rest, they want to travel, they want to vacation with their families, that whole deal. So like the amount of time some of these guys that aren't like local to Washington or Scottsdale or Tampa, like they're only in gym for a finite amount of time. Well, now we can use one of those days to like, they don't truly, I would like for them to, but they don't even have to swing a bat. Like they can just get in the box. We can go over approach types versus certain pitchers that they've maybe seen over the past year or like new trends that are coming up, like the cut ride heater and all that types of stuff. And like, I can gain a significantly in-depth understanding of how that hitter approaches this guy. And then we can have a conversation about like how, okay, that's a sick approach, stick with that, maybe go with this ball flight, or like, I don't know if that's actually the best approach for you because of these strengths we saw in your mocap assessment and how your body moves. And then full circle, when the three of us are writing scouting reports for guys next year, it's like, hey, remember when we did this in gym? This is the guy. Like this is the exact situation. Instead of like having a guy come in for a week, not knowing how he approaches certain pitch profile type guys, and just having to like give them the best advice we can give them, and it's going to help them. But like now we have literally direct examples of how they approach certain arm slots, velos, whatever.
Absolutely correct, Waddy. Absolutely correct.
If you can tell, I've been stressed out about not being able to do that this season.
That'll get better.
Yeah, yes, it will.
Cool. You guys got anything else? Any closing words on why these guys need to come train in Scottsdale, Arizona?
I mean, it's paradise. Where else would you want to be?
If you like golf,
That
Scottsdale,
too.
Arizona.
Yeah.
If you like Old Town, Scottsdale, Arizona. If you like getting better at hitting, Scottsdale and or Kent and or Tampa.
Yeah. If you like making more money also.
Yeah, I mean, another big thing we haven't touched on, it's a driveline conversation. We haven't said too much about bat speed, at least not when we're talking about the pros specifically. Bat tracking data is publicly available. You should know what your bat speed is, and if it's bad, you should definitely do something about it. Otherwise, you're not going to play for very long.
Yeah.
In most cases.
We've been known to develop some speed a couple times.
It's a thing. So, yeah, if anybody out there has low bat speed, their bat speed's regressing, you want to make some bat path changes, you want to know how you're using the ground, you want to hit off traject, we're your guys.